Okay. Because what? Oh,
here they come.
And by a minute before, we mean right now.
I mean right now.
Excellent.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
All right. We'll let everybody get filed in here and get started in about a minute or so. Okay. Welcome, everybody. If you'd like, let's make sure everybody knows where things are at. If you can, in the chat, just drop your name and where you're dialing in from in the chat so everybody can kind of see the group that we've got gathered here today. Oh. Okay. Stacy, Austin, how are you guys today?
Very well.
Excellent.
Getting
So,
ideas, learning things.
I got a notepad full. I'm sure Austin has like 4 notebooks full of notes today. Okay. This is a hot ticket. I think we maxed out the room, Stacy and Austin. Everybody wants to see what you guys are up to. Let's do this. So my name is Nick Prenger, and you are lucky because I'll stop talking in about 2 minutes and hand this over to the actual experts here. I just want to do the introductions. So I run a firm called Prenger Solutions Group. We're young. We started 4 years ago, right at the start of this crazy movement towards automation and all things digital. And the only thing that I'm good at is hiring really brilliant people and then getting the heck out of the way. So we got Stacy and Austin here today. If you don't mind advancing there for me, Stacy, let's talk about the topic at hand. So this is the first of a 3-day session, right, in the Skills Lab. Led by...
We might want to wait just a little bit because there's only 20 people in here, and I think we're supposed to have 50.
Got it. We'll let's do the introductions, Austin, and they can kind of work their way in. So Stacy, our senior database consultant. Stacy, you want to tell them what you've been up to, where you're from before PSG?
Yeah, I'm from Nebraska and Kansas City. I started fundraising for the Archdiocese of Kansas City in Kansas, and I've also worked for Benedictine College, Ronald McDonald House Charities here in Omaha, and in a set of elementary schools here in Omaha. So been working with Razor's Edge probably since 2011. So big Razor's Edge nerd.
Hey, Austin, how about you?
Well, I started out my career as a database administrator working primarily for Series Fund Children's Network camps. So one in Colorado and then one in North Carolina. And eventually made the move to consulting after going down the road of Power Automate and all the wonderful things. And I've also been a database nerd, I guess, for almost a decade now. So I started in 2012.
Excellent. Okay.
Oh, and I'm in North Carolina. So yeah, that's fun.
How is it North Carolina today?
I haven't been outside today, but it was lovely yesterday.
I heard a rumor that yesterday was nice. Haven't made it out today. Yeah, good. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for dropping a line. If you're just joining us, let us know where you're coming, where you're calling in from today. Stacy and Austin are going to lead us through this. Our citizen developers here. As background on PSG, if you're seeing a PSG logo around and you're seeing Ask Genius logo around, here's the background. So Prenger Solutions Group is a consulting firm. I think we're at 14 full-time people and an army of independent contractors. We do fundraising consulting, we do annual appeal management, and we do outsourced Razor's Edge database administration as well. That's something new that we started about 1.5 years ago. I share that just so that you know this is where we're coming from, is that we are actively solving all of these things and running annual appeals for our clients and testing out new automations on the fly for our clients on a daily basis. That's our background, what Stacy and Austin are doing with our team. And then there's another logo that you're seeing around, which is Ask Genius. Ask Genius is a product that we created to solve a problem that we had, namely around how do we set ask amounts for direct mail appeals based on all the data that we have inside of Razor's Edge. So we developed a tool to help us run better direct mail appeals for our clients. We turn that into a tool at the encouragement of Blackbaud. You can find it in the Blackbaud marketplace. It's called Ask Genius. Has nothing to do with Power Automate. It's not built on Power Automate, but I just wanted to clarify for folks because they're always asking, okay, we see PSG around, we see Ask Genius, what's the connection? Ask Genius is a tool that we built to solve one very specific painful problem, separate and apart from the work we're doing consulting and of course, building out really cool Power Automate solutions. So that's who we are. If you have any additional questions, of course, you can always reach me. I'm over here. We are working on some future development stuff on the automation side. Haven't rolled anything out yet, but we're going to someday bundle together all the cool things that we've been doing and offer that as a service independently as well. So I'll set aside all the throat clearing now. That's who we are. You guys know Stacy and Austin. If you're on the Facebook forums, you see them all the time because they're always answering questions. Stacy, I'll hand it to you to run from here and take us through it. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for coming. We're really excited to share with you all we've learned about Power Automate. Austin's going to start us out with kind of our process for how we kind of start every build that we do.
Yeah, so we start first with the ideation. So it's really what's your grand idea? What has sparked in your mind? What's that recurring task that you no longer want to manage on a day-to-day basis and remember to have to do it? And really, the sort of grand idea of the ideation is to think through your idea in the most detailed sense possible. So, what goes into it, what connectors are involved, make a list, who are the end users, so who's going to be on the outcome side of your flow and how will this impact them, how will it benefit them, and just write, like, just in the simplest sense, just take your idea, take a pen and paper, a notepad on your computer, and just write down in a paragraph, as detailed as possible, what you think will be involved in building out this idea. Now, when I say detailed, I mean this. So Stacy, you can go to the next slide. So try to think about building out a flow as in you're trying to teach this lovely robot how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So this robot's not really doing a great job of making the sandwich, but what you might have to tell the robot is, okay, I need you to go into the kitchen, stand in front of a cabinet. In your right hand, go up and pull a plate out, right? Put it down on the counter, go find the bread, go find the peanut butter and the jelly and your knife. And this is how you put it on the bread. This is how you cut the bread. This is how, like, everything that goes into building a flow from scratch is really thinking through all of the minute decisions that you make as you do different things in the database. So say you're building a flow that needs to look for a specific constituent. If you think through the micro decisions that you make to decide the information you have in front of you based on what the information your database is presenting, which one matches, which one's right, that's what you have to teach the robot how to do. So when we talk about ideation and sort of writing out an initial description for your flow and the detail involved, that's the detail involved. So throughout this sort of the 3-day series that we're going to put on to explain how to build custom automations, we're going to follow along with a flow that we've built that looks for duplicates within the system. This is a flow that's live in the template showcase today. So if you want to go download it and follow along kind of thing, you can do that. But what we're really going to utilize the flow for is to demonstrate from ideation to planning to building to execution how it went, right? So this was our initial idea. We couldn't stop duplicate records from being created in the database, so we're utilizing Power Automate to check for the new records against the database to see if there's any possible duplicates. And we want the flow to send us a notification digest if it finds those. And our initial sort of ideation was, okay, we'll have this run at night, right? So it's not sort of impacted by day-to-day operations or new data that's being added to the database. We're going to utilize a list of constituents to look for recently added constituents. And this is what we want to include. Do we want the notification? Where do we want it to show up? We ultimately ended on an email, but you could have the notification appear within, Planner, or which Nicole talked about earlier today in a session, having information come from NXT to Planner. You could have it show up in Teams. You could have it show up in Outlook or Gmail, whatever sort of end mechanism you want it to be. And so this is sort of our initial starting point. So Stacy's going to take the next part.
Rachel, thanks for posting that link to the showcase. That is where you can find it. It's in the chat now. The Power Platform Showcase, really great place to check out if you haven't been there a lot. Okay, so the first thing that we do to build a flow is we map it out, right? So there are a bunch of ways to do this, but we ask ourselves what elements are involved, what actions are going to be happening. Are there conditions? Are there decisions that the flow needs to make? If this, do this, if that, do that. Is there information that we need to bring into Razor's Edge or into the flow from Razor's Edge to make those decisions? And then what connectors are needed? We'll need to connect to Blackbaud constituents or GIFs or, Outlook or whatever else it is that we need to connect to. So visualizing is super helpful at this point. I like to use sticky notes because you can move them around, because I can tell you right now it's not going to stay the same from your first diagram to what you end up with. And if it does, kudos to you, and please tell me when that happens, because I will send you cookies. But so sticky notes are great because you can move them around, you can add stuff, and it doesn't feel as permanent as drawing something that then you have to scratch out, or you're doing it on the computer. Austen actually does this by making a list, like a detailed outline in Microsoft Word, which is a great way to do it because you have basically unlimited room for notes and thoughts and those kinds of things. So the Post-its really don't. The Post-its just give you an idea of what's happening and where the flow is going. There are, as you go through the conference, you'll probably see a lot of diagrams that are similar and that have kind of this layout, using these shapes for different elements of the flow. So I often make these in, we'll draw them in once it's complete. I will take it and draw it in Microsoft Publisher. I think Austen does hers in OneNote or something.
Yeah, I draw with an Apple Pencil on
my
iPad in OneNote.
Right. Yes, and Zoom has a new whiteboard function. There's all sorts of ways to do that, but this can help kind of make it more clear as you're looking at it. So for the flow that we are going to talk about this week, this was my initial diagram. It's going to run daily at 11 o'clock. We are going to list all the constituents added in the past 24 hours. We're going to search by email, and if there's a match, we will add it to a list. We're going to search by name, and if there's a match, we'll add it to a list. And we're going to search by address, and if there's a match, we'll add it to that list. And then we will send a notification that says, here's all the matches for this new constituent that we found. Go fix it. Yeah, I think that's it for that. Any questions so far?
Oh, and if you have a question, feel free to use your sort of reactions up on the top menu of Teams to sort of virtually raise your hand, and then we can call on you. I think we sort of skipped over that slide in the beginning, but that's all right. And you can also put any questions you have in the chat, and we'll try to answer them as we go along as well. So let's see. Haley has a question. Will you hand out the flowchart functions? You mean like, Haley, can you elaborate? You can come off of mute if you would like.
Sorry, I get hung up on these little details. So like the circle, what that means, the triangle, the rectangle, that kind of thing. Are you guys gonna basically share your slides is what I'm asking?
Yes, yeah. So the slides will be available after today and for each subsequent day after we make it through each presentation. Yes, excellent. All right, so primary flow types. So there are sort of a number of triggers that can start a flow, but these are the three primary instances. So automated means that it's triggered by a designated event, usually within the Office 365 environment. So this could be items that are added to a SharePoint list, a row is added to a table in Excel, or a document is added to a specific folder, and an instance like that would then trigger the automated flow to do something. The next type is instant. So this is more of, you think of like you can click on a button and you can manually initiate a flow. We've used this one, say, to combine multiple documents into one. So it's not necessarily a flow that needs to run all the time, but it's just accomplishing a very particular action. And then the third one is scheduled. So I would say about 95% of the flows I've built are on a scheduled trigger, meaning they happen on a recurring basis, whatever frequency you can dream up. Mine usually happen on a daily basis, if not weekly, sometimes monthly. And you can get very detailed in the intricacies of how you would like to schedule out flows. So these are the three primary types, and you can see along the bottom how they'll appear to you when you're within the Power Automate environment. The next sort of thing we're going to run through are the key concepts. So relating back to the diagram and all the shapes and fun things, these are sort of things that relate into that as well. So connectors are a connection to your database and or other apps. There are over 300 connectors within the Microsoft Power Platform. Not to mention the is it like 7 or 8 for Blackbaud Razor's Edge, and then there's separate ones for church management and all that sort of stuff. So lots of connectors, lots of pieces and places where you can connect your live data from your database to various things. The next one is actions. So these are the particular instances within the flow that it's sort of like a task. So it does something, right? So it gets information, it changes information, it adds information. And these are directly related to the connectors. So through a connector, you can say get an action to get a constituent, you can look them up by email, or you have abilities to do other things within your flow to do like sort of, it's the teaching the robot pieces. So you're using different things to show the robot what to do and what to do in different situations. Dynamic content are fields from your data source. So this window will become very familiar to you as you delve into the world of building out flows in Power Automate. It is where you get data from your live production database or your sandbox, and you bring that dynamic information into the flow. You can use it to get other information, and it's just a very handy tool. to have. The next area, I think this might be my favorite part of Power Automate, but it's sort of like the nerd in me. But variables are objects to store values in. So the best way this was described to me when I was first starting out was to think of variables like drawers. So they're really places for you to store information either upfront at the top of the flow, so you can set things ahead of time, like you can see here with the notification email, and we can see Stacy's email outlined in it already, or you can use a variable later on in the flow to collect information from an instance in the middle to use at a later time. So it's a very clever way to keep track of things from different parts and bring them together later on. Conditionals are a control mechanism within your flow. So you can set, true false conditionals, so the yes, no. You can also do switch conditionals, where you can set multiple options or outcomes and then have multiple sort of parallel things that like tracks that go down. And it's just a very cool way to sort of keep track of information and make decisions within your workflow. Apply to each basically means that it's a loop. So it's going to perform the action on each data set within the flow. So if you're pulling in a list of constituents, in this particular instance, it's going to list the email addresses for every constituent that is included in that initial list. And it will apply these actions to those constituents for every single one. So we'll see this a lot of the time in notification type flows. And Power Automate will sort of assign these loops as you add different actions to your flow. So it will appear as you add new things. And so I think we'll talk about that a little bit more tomorrow, is our plan. But yeah. And then the last piece is expressions. So the alternative tab of this sort of pop-up window that we discussed before with dynamic content, expressions are easiest to explain like Excel formulas. So you can use all sorts of things to change data. So I've used expressions to format dates to appear as month, day, year kind of thing, instead of it's sort of mumbo jumbo that it usually comes out as, or to replace copy in an email with a piece of dynamic content. So it's very simple to use, but it's good to have. Any questions so far? Okay, Stace?
Okay. So we wanted to just show you a little snippet of some of what Power Automate looks like. So could we get like some sort of reaction from people if you have already been working in Power Automate? Anything.
Oh, good.
Even if you were only in it for 1 minute. Awesome. Thank you, guys. That's good. There's quite a few of you. So the rest of you presumably have not been in Power Automate. I don't know if you've been able to sign in at all and check it out, but I would encourage you to do that. There is a resource in our in the Skills Lab description that shows how to test if you have the correct license to access Razor's Edge actions. So if you do not know, you could test that out. What else was I going to say about that? And it's super fun. Okay, and then I found $5. Okay, so this is Power Automate. When you come here, the way I usually get to it is by typing in flow.microsoft.com, and you will wind up right here. The place you will spend most of your time is in this My Flows area. And your flows will either, hang on, someone is requesting something. I don't know what that means. I can't see the whole message. I'm going to deny you control. I'm sorry. We can discuss further in a minute. So most of your flows are going to initially show up here in cloud flows, and shared with me is where your flows will all go once you've shared them with someone. So if you're alone, yours will probably live here. If you're working with a team, they'll mostly live here. To create a new flow, you click this button, or you use this import button to import those flows that are found in the template library or the showcase, template showcase. There's also a create area here that shows a ton of templates that are super easy to put together. You just click on one and connect it to your email, your data, whatever, and it will begin running. Here's another place to search for templates. There are hundreds and hundreds of these. Notify an email when a new file is uploaded to OneDrive, stuff like that. Connectors is another area that we wanted to be sure and show you. So this is where you can find all of the 300 plus applications that Austen talked about earlier. So there's a bunch of these not pretty ones here. So down further, we have things like Dropbox and Twitter and Slack and, you know, everything. Asana. There's just tons and tons of stuff in here. To find if they have something that you are looking for, we can search connectors here. And here are the Blackbaud connectors that exist. So the ones that we're going to use for this, or we're actually just going to use this constituent one for the flow that we're working on today. But these other ones are all out there too. So prospects, gifts, this is the original, oh, that's interactions. Fundraising, this is campaigns, funds, and appeals, those things. Blackbaud Sky add-ins, Razor's Edge events, and lists. And then there's also, this is the original Razor's Edge Blackbaud connector that was kind of all in one. And then church management. So plenty of things to play with here in Power Automate. Now, one thing we do recommend doing is before you begin building your flow, set up your connections. So that's found here in Data Connections. And it shows that I already have connections in my Power Automate to constituents, to my Outlook email, and to my SharePoint. So to add a new connection, we click the new connection button, and then we search over here. And we'll add the gifts connection just for fun. And I don't know if you can see that, but this little authorize thing comes up and it'll say, do you authorize us to connect to your Razor's Edge environment? And I will say that I do authorize that. If you're not logged into Razor's Edge, it'll ask you for credentials there, etc. Liam, great point, that they're phasing out the all-in-one. It's just there for old flows. Excellent point. Do not use the old Razor's Edge NXT connector. It was the first one, so it's the original, and people have a lot of things built with it, so it's still there, but the new ones are new and improved, so use the new and improved ones. All right, that is really the places you're going to spend your time when you're in Power Automate. Austen, should we do Q&A next and maybe ask people what their ideas are that they're working on?
Yeah, sure. So does anyone have any questions so far? I put in the chat a link to our document on instructions on how you can verify that you have the correct licensing to utilize premium connectors in Power Automate. So if you haven't done that already, I would recommend that you do so. If you have any questions with that, you're more than welcome to let us know over the course of the next couple days. And that sort of thing. I think the real idea with this is that you all take ideas and you start building them out and all the sort of fun things that come along with that. All right, let's see. Does anyone have their hand up? Sandra, do you have a question?
Sandra, you can unmute and ask your question if you want, or you could type it into the chat. Oh, you do not have a question. Got it.
Oh, okay. We have a question from Jill. I'm having trouble. I'm trying to link to the new connectors, but I'm having a hard time finding them in the list. So yes, the new connectors, you will have to type out for a little bit. I would recommend that you type out like Blackbaud Razor's Edge. And depending on what you plan to look up in your flow, you may need to establish a connection to more than one of them. So there's like, what, 8 or 9 of them? Yeah, so the ones I use most frequently probably would be constituents and GIFs, and then sort of peppered in, depending on what data I'm looking for to include in my flow, would be additional connectors on top of that.
As you're getting started, it would not hurt to just establish connections to all of these. They're all going to your same database. They're just accessing different tables in the database, basically. So, so yeah, once you find the Blackbaud ones, just connect to all of them. So, oh,
right.
Ben, thank you. That's good to know. It is sometimes hard to find things.
Christina.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, the lawnmower is going crazy outside, so I'll try to speak up. I don't know if this is the right forum to ask this question. Maybe it's for a different session, but the NXT lists, the data that you can pull is pretty limited. You have suggested workarounds to get data entry fields that you can pull in the database view versus what limitations you have with NXT.
So really getting data into a flow, utilizing the connectors, you'll be constrained to what's available to you within WebView. If you want to get data into your flow that's like pledge information, or tributes is usually my go-to, but apparently that's coming today. But like data that's very specific to database view only, then you'll have to utilize an STP connection to your FTP site in order to sort of get that data from one place and move it to another. So you may have heard some folks today when they're sharing their flows talk about the queue module, and that's a sort of add-on to database view that helps automate getting data out of that view and into a sort of a Power Automate type platform. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, you did. I think I probably knew that, but I didn't know if maybe you had some or additional information. So the queue module, that's a paid add-on, I assume?
Yeah, so let me, I'll pull up a knowledge base article and I'll put it in the chat on Q. Does anyone have any other questions, or do you want to share any sort of light bulb moment you had today as you were listening to folks present?
I think you're muted, Rachel.
Thank you for that. So Rachel in Denver with the Habitat for Humanity, and I just wanted to say thanks for doing this. You know, I've wanted to join the Accelerator 101 course for a while, and I do not have that kind of time in my schedule. So 2.25 hours over 3 days and getting, you know, the basics just in, you know, really high level detail is really great. So thank you.
Oh yeah, happy to help out. I will also say, as you're getting started, knowing that some of you may have already sort of dabbled in building flows, whereas others are like bare minimum, just today is day one type deal. Check out the template library. A good flow to start with is the GIF notification flow. I'll put a link directly to that one in the chat, and just sort of go through the process of importing a flow into your environment and, you know, playing around with some stuff. That's probably the best way to go about it. And then, of course, we'll be here to answer questions along the way. All right, there is a question from Elizabeth. Is there a basic step 1 document that lists out all the terms with details about usage and descriptions, API versus flow versus Power App versus connector, etc.? I will put the documentation that Blackbaud has put together about Power Automate into the flow. There's a link. I'll put a link to it. I think that's probably the best. What do you think, Stacy? Yeah.
They have a ton on their website. So this link that she's about to give you has maybe more information that you want, but it has a lot of quite helpful things. I am there most days. So
I think John might have a question or a comment somebody's working on.
oh yeah, go ahead, John.
Hi, two-part, but hopefully very easy question. Is there a desktop version, and do it, or the browser-based version that you're showing, does that have everything we need as far as, you know, what we need to do with, especially with Razor's Edge and Power Automate?
Yeah, Ben or someone else, if anyone else has any wisdom on that. I have actually not used the desktop version. I use the web version all the time. I have found that I can do pretty much everything that I've attempted there. Anybody else have thoughts?
I also have never used the desktop version. I've always used the web browser, and it had everything that I needed.
Yeah, thanks. How about anybody? Raise your hand if you've been working on a project. So we're getting into this as kind of intro day here out of 3. I would love to hear what people are building on their own, what they've dabbled with. So raise your hand if you're working on anything, or maybe not. Maybe this is the first time anybody's using Power Automate. Christine, what are you working on? Make sure to unmute yourselves when we call on you there.
So I'm working with a consultant, so I'm working with NP Automate. I just want to point that out before
Yeah.
I.
Barton, we see the world. We love Barton.
I don't want to take all the credit or anything. So yeah, definitely Barton and Dana are doing the heavy lifting on this. But we are building out, starting with a Microsoft form. We're connecting it to NXT to be able to update user mailing preferences. So if somebody says they want to get annually, it not only goes to their profile and adds that solicit code, it looks to see if there's old solicit codes that need to be cleaned up. And then it also adds a note that says solicitation, you know, that it was updated on this date and that it was updated based on that form. And then if somebody chooses one of the options that we can't directly automate to the database, it sends an email to our donor services team. And that email will include a list of potential matches, like we're asking for certain contact information. And so if it can match or even potentially match donors, it'll include the list of those donors in the email to the donor services team. So really excited. We're so close to it being done. So it's very exciting.
That's great.
That
Great.
sounds
Thank
awesome.
Okay. Haley, what are you working on?
So recently, I mean, I have to say that you guys are not kidding. The templates are fantastic because it really is that quick win that somebody was talking about in an earlier session. When you download those templates, then you can take them and manipulate them to fit different kinds of needs. So I would say the most impactful for our team has been the daily gift notification, the digest, to go out to the gift officers. They really think I'm a rock star because I was able to do that. And while I did go through the steps through the workshop 101, which is recorded and available for us to go through, I was having trouble getting the link to work to where it would link back to the constituent. So I ended up just like running out of time, and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna download it. And within minutes, it was connected and working properly. So, and then I just sliced and diced that different ways. So I created a list for each fundraiser, so they get personal emails for when gifts come into them. I've also, just taking those skills and taking them even outside of Blackbaud, don't tell. We've done things like we use Microsoft Forms to collect consent data because the email component doesn't allow people to opt down. It's just unsubscribe and that's it. So we drive people to a Microsoft form, and but I haven't had the time to fully automate that process to update, find it, match it, drop it in as consent. So right now I just have it post to a Teams board with all the information, so you don't have to go into the form and download it, and then create a task, and then our work study students help us manually update those, which, again, it's the first step, right? But now I don't have to go in, download it, summarize it, and do and post the assignment. Then we have a weekly report reminder, and I don't know about you guys, but my team, I love them dearly, and they are working so hard to be in the system and work in the system and learn all the little pieces and be consistent with their data entry. But they still really need that weekly reminder in their inbox Monday morning to go and look at the list of gifts that came in that week, or go and look at the progress we've made on the campaign, or go and look at the opportunities that are open. So I just simply created a list, and my email is just a link to that list. So again, super quick, easy, but something I can build on to the future. But I have like 15 different projects that I'm planning on working
on. Well, give your time, your space and time to accomplish those. Don't set arbitrary dates. Just give yourself the time to work through those.
What I love hearing about that too, just for the whole group, like, don't apologize that everybody who says, oh, it's just a quick, easy little thing. Don't apologize for that. Like, those are huge. Like, the number of times you get asked by those dang fundraisers, like, hey, can I see my donors? Can I see the list? Like, those are huge time-saving things. Like, you can set those up now. You could live for a year just setting up those quick, easy wins, right? The digest and the gift alerts, and then you can move on to more complicated stuff if you want to. But just know Power Automate is great for that. I wanted to get to a couple others. Kelly, Allen, what are you working on? Your hand raised. I hope I'm saying that right. Could be Keely.
It's Kelly. Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead.
Thank you for saying it right the first time.
Shot in the dark.
I am just starting out trying to evaluate this and see if I can ask my boss for the license and all of that. But one of my questions is, we're a Google school. So are these daily emails and stuff or things that we're like, oh, sorry, it only works with Outlook, or only if you have SharePoint licenses for everybody you're going to email, or is it something that will still work for them?
Gmail connects. There are some other Google products that connect to Power Automate, so do not let that hold you back. It's not going to have everything that you could ever want, possibly, but a couple things to consider. You could get by with getting one SharePoint license for you if you come to things that you find you can't do. And they're not necessarily as expensive as you think. They're a subscription now, so it's, X dollars a month or whatever. And the Power Automate license, tell your boss that it's currently, if you're a nonprofit, Microsoft nonprofit customer, it's $378 a month per user. So do not let that be a barrier either. So yeah, I would definitely convince them you need the Power Automate license and then see what you can do without other Microsoft products, and you'll probably be able to get really far.
Okay. And then my only other question was, one of my ideas was to use this to email gift officers about anniversaries, because the tags only have birthdays. So they don't see those anniversary pop-up reminders like they do with the birthdays. So I didn't know if that was
No,
like,
that's a great idea. Actually, Dan Snyder did a presentation earlier today about an anniversary flow that he's built, and he shared the code to the template library. So
awesome.
amazing.
I'll go look
You
for that.
gotta
Thank
look
you.
that up.
Before we run out of time, I want to show you guys, we did have a homework assignment that you can do if you feel like it. So if you have been thinking about this, hang on. If you've been thinking about a project you want to do, pick one, draw it out, and do some of the mapping that we talked about and thinking through what connectors you'll need. The other thing, if you have not already, check your connection to the Blackbaud connectors in Power Automate. The resources in our session notes will have that document and Austen link to it.
Yeah, I put it in the chat before, but I can put it in there again.
So if you have time tonight and want to spend a little bit of time thinking about one of your projects that you're working on, a little bit of planning goes a really, really long way when you're building these things. So I don't know if it's 3:15 now. I don't know if we get shut off. Do we want to take a few more questions while we're still here?
Yeah, I don't know if, if folks need to leave, we're at the sort of at the time we said that our session would end, but if you would like to stick around, you're more than welcome to, and we can continue to take questions. I know that at one point John had his hand up, and Liam, and Kevin, I think, Keith, maybe?
I think it was Keith.
Keith. So if any of y'all are still around, feel free to come off mute and ask your question.
It wasn't a question. It was sharing an idea that we were working on.
Oh, yeah.
So we're fortunate. Our organization has a Power Automate team in-house that I can use as a resource. And so together we collaborated on creating an automated workflow for our donor acknowledgement letters, sending out our receipts. Primarily just the receipts. We haven't started working on the other types of donor acknowledgement letters that we currently utilize, but the big piece was getting the receipts out. So sending out the receipts once a week. So it actually runs daily, and it creates a PDF of all of the receipts that we can send to our printer to have the printer do the printing and mailing. So that was the first big flow that we worked on. The second thing that we did that we've recently implemented is we have employee donations, and so we've created this flow that gathers the employee donation information out of Workday and creates the gift records in Razor's Edge NXT. So instead of me having to import those gifts once a month, they're now automatically imported via Power Automate workflow. So those were two big projects, and we've got some other little things that we're working on, and I'm still trying to learn as much as I can about Power Automate. I haven't dabbled in it too much, but that's why this session is really helpful. It gives me more exposure to it, so that hopefully I don't have to tap into our in-house resources, but I'm thankful that they're there.
Thanks for sharing. It sounds like you're up to some pretty cool stuff. Let's see, Jill has a question. Are fund relationships available for use in Power Automate? I'm not quite sure. I think that's something we would probably have to look up. I know that their funds, Ben might be able to share a little bit more, but I know that there's additional sort of connections coming for campaigns, funds, and appeals as of today or tomorrow. Yay! And we might, that might be just something you need to poke around in that sort of connector to see what's possible there.
I assume that's in the fundraising connector. Is that right, Ben?
Yeah, I'm guessing that would be it.
Awesome. Good work.
Amazing. Go, Ben. All right, let's see here. Christina, would you like to share or do you have a question?
My question is more around Red Arc versus doing a Power Automate flow for merge letters.
Stacy, do you want to
Great
take?
question. I think the Red Arc solution is really, really great. I think that you'll probably have some more options if you're doing it yourself in Power Automate, but then you'll also have to fix every single thing that goes wrong, right? So it kind of depends, I think, if you want to spend money on it or if you want to spend time on it. I think that's the difference. Oh, Nick, you're muted.
Nick, you're muted.
Sorry about that. It's my first time using technology. Yes, and most people underestimate the amount of time, right? So what we find, a lot of people will, I'm not going to pay for something, I can do it myself, and then they spend weeks and months on it and have burned through more than what they would have spent on it. We think Stu's great. We think Red Arc's great. We're impressed by everything they do. So yeah, we endorse that. If I'm not sure what the pricing is on it, but it seems like a pretty elegant solution, doesn't it, Stacy?
Yeah, it really seems great. And they've added some improvements already since it released, which is awesome. So yeah, big fan.
Great.
And I saw that they had a free version of it. I'm sure, just like everything, it's probably got a lot of limitations that might force you to buy the premium version, but
Yeah, I think it is usable. The free version is usable. I remember thinking that it was a pretty generous free version. But you would definitely, I mean, it would definitely depend on what your processes are, whether you would need to move up.
the feedback.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Okay.
Anything else? Same time, same place tomorrow. We'll start building the duplicate notification flow. It'll be amazing.
And we'll start troubleshooting it because that's how it goes.
Yeah. Excellent. Good job, Austen. Good job, Stacy.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody, for joining in. Come with any questions tomorrow. Same time, same place. It'll be all on Teams. And we want this to be as interactive as possible. So if you have thorny questions or something you want to talk about, we'll do the same thing tomorrow with lots of Q&A. Okay. Thanks, everybody.